Hey guys, I'm so glad that you are joining us today. I've got a really special guest here. This is actually the illustrator of the Great Christmas Heist, Syd Hutchison. And I'm so glad that we got this opportunity to actually meet in person. We've been meeting over the last few months.
Zoom.
Yeah, by Zoom.
Yeah.
Zoom. And you know, this project I've been working on for 10 years.
Yeah.
It was sitting up on the shelf, and as I just spoke to you a little while ago, I said I've been working on this thing and couldn't quite find the illustrator
Yeah.
who could capture the vision of this project. And you know, so we're gonna talk a little bit about how we met.
Yeah.
And how we met, and then we're going to get into a little bit about the book. So guys, just open your eyes and sit up in your seats, and you know, if you were here, I'd tell you to give an applause. But I'm so excited to have you, Syd, and welcome.
Excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, when I moved to Shadyside, Ohio, and I met Library Lisa. For those of you who may have seen from the previous video, I met Library Lisa, and she connected me with Kaylee, who's another illustrator, and Kaylee wanted to take on the project, and she had some things that were going on. She was unable to do it, and she says, you know, hey, but I have someone that I know that you're going to absolutely love and adore, who can really do a fantastic job with this project. And I was like, okay, Kaylee, I'm putting my life in your hands. I was really assured, because she was so excited. Everyone who I presented the book to was really excited about it. And so we connected, and she, you know, basically gave me your information.
Right.
And I got this text from that was shared. So tell me about what happened when you first got this message about this project. It's just from some guy that you had no idea who he was. What were your thoughts? What thoughts were going through your mind?
Well, I'd never done a children's book before, and so I was kind of thinking, wow, this is a huge opportunity. But let's kind of feel this out and see who this person is.
Right.
Yeah. Kaylee and I are lifelong friends, and so I was sure that she would only send me something that I would be interested in doing, and so I was immediately ecstatic. I mean, I thought this is going to be a really good opportunity, and so when I read the manuscript, I was like blown away. I just thought, wow, this is going to be great, that I'm going to be able to be a part of this, and yeah, here we are.
Once we connected and we did that first meeting, it was on like Donkey Kong.
Yep.
I mean, we hit it off.
Yep.
Personality-wise, and I got an opportunity to see some of your sketches and your drawings, and I was like, wow, you are an amazing artist.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really a privilege to be able to work on this. So yeah, it's just going to be fantastic.
It really is, guys. And we're not trying to, you know, blow up our own balloons. Like when you see this project in its completed form, it's going to really knock your socks off. Won't you tell a little bit about who you are?
Yeah. So I am an illustrator and a youth services librarian with our public library system here. And so I have a passion for children's literature, and I wanted to do illustration for a long time.
You have taken those words and you have really, you brought them to life. As soon as you presented the first sketches, I was like, that's Thomas and Claire. Like, that was them, and it just blew me away. About this book is really about finding the purpose and the wonder, rediscovering the purpose and the wonder behind Christmas. I really believe when you read this book, what I think of, what I thought of when I was writing this book was I thought back to when I was a kid and the joy and the wonder that I had when I was reading. I really believe that when people read this book and they see the illustrations that you have done, it's going to transport them to a simpler time. Tell me about what came to your mind when you first read it, and what images. We're going to get into a little bit about what images came to your mind when you were creating this project, when you were drawing the picture.
I was thinking, what are two things that I really feel are integral to this project? And number one is wonder, and number two is warmth.
Yeah.
But I think that we are living in a time where things are very mass produced, and maybe things kind of take on this form that ends up looking almost kind of industrial.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to steer away from that and make sure that there's a lot of movement, a lot of color, a lot of imagination in every page of this book.
Let's talk a little bit more about what your art style is and what people can expect.
Sure. So I would describe my art style as being very playful and very imaginative. I try to keep a lot of movement and a lot of freedom in what I draw. And I also harken back to the drawings that I made when I was a child. So I kind of think about, how is this looking through a child's eyes, and is it something they can relate to? Is really what we're trying to exemplify here is the storytelling.
I'm putting a part of myself down on the pages. And it's the same thing I saw with your illustrations. Because books will take you places that you can't go physically, but will also take these children and it transports them into new worlds. So who inspired you to become an illustrator, an artist?
Yeah. Well, my grandmother was a big inspiration to me. I remember when I was 7 years old, my grandmother was a secretary, and I would go to work with her sometimes and play with some crayons that she bought me and copier paper. And so I remember putting together this small book. It was a book about fairies, and I remember stapling it carefully together and handing it to her and saying, I just wrote my first book. But I am inspired every day, especially with my work at the library. There's constantly little scenarios and things that I see that just make me think, wow, like this is really magical. So what inspired you to create this story?
Well, I've always loved books. And so when I was small, one of the things I loved was my mom would come into my room and she would scratch my head. I would lay my head on her lap, and she would scratch my head while she would read to me. And I fell in love with language and being able to express myself. Writing became a way for me to put my thoughts and my feelings on paper. I was terrified of being in front of people. I enjoyed reading. I was really inspired by people like L. Frank Baum, with the Wizard of Oz series, and Roald Dahl, and people like that who would just transport you to these other places. So while I was living in Columbus, I was looking around and I saw so many kids who were sad, having been a dad. Particularly, I was a single father when I wrote this book. And I wanted to protect. I think it's very important we protect that innocence in our children. Because they only get one shot at being a child. And I think we're kind of pushing them to kind of get out to experience the world or whatever else. But they'll be children. I wanted to present something that would have a positive message to it. So, if you look at the Dr. Seuss books, well, Dr. Seuss was an incredible author. because his books provide a level of innocence and imagination for children to explore.
Yeah.
But there were also these incredibly powerful messages that were in these books, right? So, as an adult, we read the books, or when I started reading the books as an adult, it was like, oh my God, I never even realized this book was about that.
Yeah.
As a kid, you're like, oh, this is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the Lorax, which is a environmental book.
Yep.
Right? You wouldn't even realize that. Or the Zax, which was a book about discrimination, right? And classism and all of those things. But as a child, you don't see that. You just see these wonderful drawings and whatnot. But still, these messages about society and treating people with respect and loving each other and calling on the higher angels of who we are communicated through this literature. And I wanted to present something that honored that. What was most important to me was presenting something that was going to impact children's lives in a positive way. This book communicates that message about finding real love and joy with your family. Even though the book isn't preachy on that, there's a component to it that lets you know, the most important thing is love.
Right. And I totally agree with that message that, we live in this age of like hyper consumerism. And I think a lot of the times we do forget what's important.
Yeah. Some of your other thoughts about this project, and what are you hoping that people get out of it?
I don't know what I can add to what you've already said.
You have a lot to add.
I don't know. I mean, I think that when I read this story, it does just kind of ground me. Like there's this sense of, 99% of the time I'm out here somewhere. But when I read this book, it's kind of a place of comfort, and it feels warm and welcoming. And I think that it's important that we have media for kids and adults now that reflects the beauty of what we have around us already.
I love being a dad. I think there's nothing more rewarding than to cultivate your child. And I think for any parent who loves being a parent, you want your child to be exposed to things that are these positive messages.
Right.
What types of emotions when you're illustrating do you really want to invoke in the readers, in the children who are looking at this book?
Yeah. So I kind of want this to be a little bit of a roller coaster. The first stage, I kind of want people to feel this sense of almost discomfort or like frustration with the characters, or like frustration because you relate to the characters and you also feel like you need more. And then as we play through, I think that there is a sense of like wonder with an underlying sense of something is missing. So what the book really centers around, I think it culminates to like this sense of love and commitment and warmth. And but prior to that, it's a lot of things.
I see the book for children who are primarily between, I say 3 and 10. And the reason why I go as high as that, because there are children who are still facing many of those challenges and those issues. It's not just a book for toddlers. As a matter of fact, I think toddlers will really enjoy the art, and I think people of all ages will really enjoy the art behind it. But I think as you kind of grow and as you mature, you capture more and more of the message.
So if we think about Thomas and Claire, I started with very basic shapes. a circle for the head, a circle for some pigtails, a little triangle for the dress, and then everything kind of develops from there. So it's just basic building blocks, shapes that everyone can recognize. And I was really inspired by a lot of vintage children's books. It's not as common to see a children's book that is traditionally illustrated now. And so I do pull a lot of inspiration from much older publications.
Yes.
And then finally, I put my own spin on it, which is, I'm all about color and vibrancy. And so it's really, a collection of many different things that came into creating Thomas and Claire. Yeah, for their initial characters, they kind of come across as being really spoiled, and they don't realize what they have, and they're making fun of other children. And so I really wanted to be able to create a bunch of different facial expressions for them, because they're not all sweet,
no,
like most of us aren't. And so I was pretty inspired by that, to be able to have the freedom to use a lot of different shapes and expressions. I wanted something versatile, but also characters that are easy to recognize. Right, so we've talked about a lot of stuff today, but at the end of the day, I think we should bring it in with, what do you think the true spirit of Christmas is?
Faith, family, community. It always goes back to that. Respecting one another, loving each other, valuing each other, supporting each other, loving each other, spending time with each other. Take a moment away from the hustle and bustle and give your kid a hug. Give your mom and your dad a hug. Cousin, your sister, whoever it is, give them a hug and let them know how much that you love them, how much they mean to you. And my hope is that when people pick up this book, that is going to be a step, a leap, a jump in the direction of recapturing that. Well, Syd, I'm just blown away. And one, we got to finally meet in person. So we're not sitting on camera, like looking at each other. Yeah, okay, it's kind of down this week. Let's talk on the phone. But it is a pleasure and an honor to work with you and to put this project together. And we're just excited. It's Great Christmas Heist. Again, a passion project. It's going to become a passion for you and your family. And it's going to be released this fall. So it'll be a great gift for your family and a great investment for your friends as well, who are looking to recapture the joy and the wonder of the Christmas season. So thank you so much for joining us. And we're just excited and looking forward to connecting with you guys again here really, really soon.